What's up everybody, it's John Carden for Primal Performance Coaching Online. And today I'm going to do my first of a weekly segment where I'm actually going to go through and cook a whole recipe. Today is just going to be a protein source. So today we're going to do a braised beef brisket. Now, the reason why I'm starting off with a protein source is I found with many clients that I deal with, they have a pretty easy time getting carbs in. They have a hard time figuring out what protein sources, how much, and how to cook them, or they get bored, they just want to have steak and chicken. Now, one they also say is too costly. So, beef brisket, depending on where you get it, can have a lot of fat. But this beef brisket in particular is actually a grass-fed brisket that I got from a farm that was locally, and it actually costs about the same as it would buying it from the grocery store. Now, that's not necessarily cheap, but compared to what grass-fed beef meat can cost, depending on where you get it from, it's actually quite cost effective. You feel great, and it's way better for you. So this is what it looks like right now. So it's been sitting for about 12 hours in some pepper and a bunch of salt. And as you can see, it's not a super fatty brisket. It's got a lot of lean meat there. I'd say it's about like 80% lean and maybe like 10%, about 90 to 80% fat, which is actually quite good. Most brisket is about a 70-30 split. So we're gonna start the braising process by searing our beef brisket. So I don't have a big enough pan. I don't have a fancy roasting pan type deal. I don't have a fancy oven. I live in a very modest apartment. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the oven to sear it. So we're going to get some olive oil. You shouldn't really use olive oil, but that's what we have, so that's what we're going to use. Put that in there. Get that heated up nice. While that's happening, we're going to take an onion and some garlic, and we're going to cut those up so that way we can cook those up in the pan, in the pot, after we've cooked up the brisket a little bit. So you're going to take a knife. You're going to cut off the ends. That way you can get off all the skin better. You're going to cut down. That way you can open out and peel off one of the layers, the outer layer of the skin. Try not to peel off too much. You're going to take that, all that skin off of your cutting board. You're going to throw that in the garbage over here. Well, the oil's heating up nicely still. It's not quite as hot as we want it. We're going to turn up the temperature to close to high, not quite full high. Then, we're going to take a knife and we're going to chop up this onion. So you're going to cut it this way and then this way. And then you're going to make big kind of chunks. They're not going to be super fine. So you're going to cut it in half again. Cut it in half lengthwise, cut it in half again. Then cut it in half lengthwise again. Down that way. And again. And then you can just chop it up into sections. And that should be good enough. And by now, it should be mostly... I'll move over here so that way you guys can see me a little bit better. We're just going to chop like so. Okay, now we're going to do 3 cloves of of garlic actually. This isn't an onion. Sorry about that. So you're going to squish it with your hand. That way you get it nice and clean off. You're going to take that. You're going to squish the other one with hand. Yeah. Then you're going to take them apart. All the while this oil is heating up nice. It's kind of a pain in the dick sometimes to get these things peeled apart, but once they're peeled, it's not so bad. So you just take off all that covering there on the skin of the garlic. You're going to take that peel again, take it over there. You don't need to mince these up super fine, you don't gotta be fancy. I just like to cut them like 3 ways down and then chop up the side. So just finally 2, 3, and then just quick little cut down that way. Now they're nicely climbed up. 1, 2, 3, 1. They don't have to be super fine for this. You're not making a sauce or anything. This is just for braising and for flavor. So, and you can eat this after if you want to. So now we're going to test the oil. I'm going to get a little bit of water on my head. Pops up nice. So we know that it's nice and hot. Probably a little bit too hot actually. So stand back. Now I'm going to take my brisket. I'm going to throw it in there. And while that's going, I'm going to put the bowl in the sink so it's clean. I'm going to take some soap and wash my hands. Okay. And now, pay attention to this. You want to do a little bit of time per side. I got some tongs here so I can maneuver around this brisket. All you're trying to do is kind of sear it quickly. Just move it out to the brisket, then we'll flip it to the other side. Turn the heat up a little bit more. Then we're going to put the brisket into there. We'll make our braising sauce. At this point we're going to start to heat up the oven. Okay, now we're going to take this brisket, we're going to flip it around carefully and cook that side up. Make sure it's all the way seared around. That way you can kind of flavor in the juices. They'll actually start to smell really nice right now. So, and like I said, this isn't that difficult of a thing to do. I don't have a slow cooker. Some of you can do that. If you have a slow cooker or one of those pressure cooker type deals, you can do this quite more efficiently. And this meal can be cooked up in like a matter of minutes, really. So we're just going to pressure down that meat. As you can see, it's getting all of it seared nicely. And the meat now is coming all over the house, and it smells quite lovely. Yeah, and there we go. So it should almost be fully seared. Okay, it's nice and seared now. Make sure fat side goes up. The fattier side, which is this side, goes up. Okay, now I'm going to throw in our onions and our garlic. Like so. Just going to swirl those around. You want to basically caramelize these so they're almost at a translucent point. And then that way they also soak up all the flavor that's been used in the meat. So this way when you get that braised brisket cooked up all nice, it's going to taste amazing. Okay, and then the next thing you're going to do, you're going to have some tomato sauce, some beef stock, especially if you're using beef. I like to cook in the stock of the actual meat that I'm using unless it's really called for. And a little bit of wine, just for a little bit of flavor. I'm not using a lot, maybe like 1/4 of a cup. If you're going to cook with alcohols, make sure you cook with the proper alcohol. I'm not a chef, so I don't always know what that is, so I usually just consult the internet. So that's what I suggest for you. So let's let that cook up nice. Get that going. It's nice and hot in here. It should saute up pretty quickly. There's going to be a lot of flavor in this meal. I also like to use a little bit of rosemary, just to give it a little bit more flavor. It's going to take another probably a minute or so, probably 3 minutes for this to go. Still going, right? Yeah, it's going to get trimmed. It'll probably be like 5 minutes for you. Now, as that goes. Let it go more and more. If you want to make sure, you don't want to rush this, you want to make sure these are cooked up nice when you're cooking your brisket. The reason for that, or even just anything when you're cooking, especially if you're doing like a braising or a stewing, is because it's cooked in so much like liquid that it won't cook as much as you think. And the same thing with pasta sauces, you want to make sure that your toppings or your fillings are fairly well cooked through before you cook them in the pasta sauce. And then if you're cooking it like roasting, you want to do the opposite, or else that shit's gonna burn. So that's a quick little tip. Saying guys, this is like a 5-pound brisket. This is something that is gonna take a little bit of time to cook, but it's gonna taste amazing, and it's gonna last you like 4 or 5 days. And really, other than just letting it sit in the oven, because I don't have a slow cooker, it doesn't take much time under it. If you had a slow cooker, this would be a very easy meal. You would just follow the same steps, but then you would just throw it in a slow cooker. So I think our onions and our garlic are almost ready. They're almost fairly caramelized. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the alcohol. I'm gonna pour a little bit of that in there. Let that caramelize for a few seconds to a minute on its own. You're going to get a very alcohol-y aroma coming through, but it's going to really nicely caramelize these onions and the garlic a bit. The alcohol will cook off, so anyone that's concerned, oh, he's cooking with alcohol, really it's not a concern. It will cook off. Okay, then you're going to use some tomato sauce, about 1 to 2 cups, depending on how much sauce you want. If you're just using this to braise it, I don't think you should use a ton, just because maybe you don't want the sauce. But if you do want a bit of sauce, which I do, because you can turn this into like a barbecue sauce, and it's quite healthy, really. You don't put anything else in it. You just literally just cook it off in the after you kind of go through. You cook it off a bit more after it's been braised in a pot, and it turns into like a nice barbecue sauce. So now you're gonna take your beef stock, same thing, about 1 to 2 cups, depending on how you want to do this, depending on how saucy or liquidy you want your braising set up to be. You want the meat to be sitting in a fair bit of liquid though, so you don't want it to be a little bit amount. So I'm going to add a little bit more because I'm not happy with how much consistency, and I have a little bit of tomato sauce left over, so I'm going to try to get that in there. So we got that in there. Get the braising sauce in there. Fill that up with a little bit more. So about a little bit more. Like I said, you don't have to be exact if you're not baking. For cooking, you don't have to be exact. It's not an exact science. It's all about just making it taste good, right? So we're gonna let that cook up a bit, because we're not doing this the exact proper way. With braising, really what you want to do is have you want to have basically it all cooked up in the same thing, but because that can't quite happen, you gotta kind of experiment and improvise with things, right? So right now we're cooking up the braising sauce a bit in the same pot that we seared the brisket, so it's gonna taste quite good. It's gonna have all those flavors locked into it, and this brisket's sitting nice and pretty. Okay, so we're gonna shut that off. And I'm just going to pour this in over top and around our brisket, like so, to make a nice. So I found the tin foil. Now we're just going to quickly cover this up, so that way everything braises in nicely. Like so. Now we're going to take this and put it in the oven. It's at 350 now, just to warm it up nice. I'm going to bring it down a little bit to probably 300. Ooh, that's hot. Set that in there, and it's going to sit for about 2 hours at least. Check it at 2 hours, see how it feels. You might have to be in for 3. So I'll bring the temperature down a bit. My oven's kind of shitty. We're also put it at like 250, but it's got to be a 320 for this. And that's it. So we'll see what it looks like in a couple hours. Done. So it's been about 2.5, 3 hours. I've checked it a few times. It looks quite good now. It's actually nice and compact and nice and soft, and all the juice is cooked in. So we're going to take it off so we can let it rest. So we're going to take it out. And it looks, let's take a look. It smells great. Let's see how she looks. Oh boy, oh boy. Woo! It's shrunk a fair bit. It looks real nice. So, let's just quickly show you guys on the camera. That's what it looks like. It looks real nice. You can see all the juices coming up. And you can see you got that nice sauce that you can turn into a barbecue sauce. So we're gonna let that sit for a good like 20-30 minutes. Then we can cook it. Then we can cut it up, and that's it. So hope you guys enjoyed that. That's how you make a nice braised brisket. It's a great alternative to a roast. It's pretty lean. It's also very cheap, and I find that to be very helpful as well. That it's cheap and it tastes great. And you can then cut that up. It's really soft and juicy, so it tastes great with any kind of meal. And a lot of times with pre-cooked proteins, everything gets dry and kind of nasty. This tastes great all the time. Just gotta heat it up nice, and it's good.